So I'm covering LA Fight Club, Golden Boy Promotions, this past Thursday, which was yesterday, and I hear people talking about the PBC series, and naturally, since Golden Boy and Bob Arum are suing Al Heyman, that's a topic of discussion, but amongst writers and reporters and so on and so forth. So I hear people saying that boxing like PBC is bad. So I so I turn and look back, and it's Steve Kim, and I say, and Steve is basically minimizing what Al Heyman has done for the sport of boxing, and saying that PBC is bad for boxing. And he said something that was alarming. He said PBC is a piece of shit, but more importantly, his tone. And everyone knows the when someone's tone has an additional meaning than a message. And so I told him that I adamantly disagreed with him, and I would love to interview him. And he declined the interview and said he's Steve Carlton this interview. But anyhow, but getting back to what he talked about, it bothered me because just at the core of what Al Heyman is doing, which I think is valuable, and one of his strongest points is that it's free. CBS, NBC, and I would agree that it hasn't been some of the best matchmaking, but my gosh, the number of fights that has been put on between now and its genesis in March has been astounding. And more importantly, if you extract what Al Heyman has done, I mean, I would say 50% of the fights that I go to are Al Heyman fights, PBC fights, and it's keeping you in the love of boxing, it's keeping me in love of boxing. And I know people dispute the quality of the cards, but at the end of the day, if you love boxing, you, you're going to tune in. Just take into account the NBA season. The NBA season is 100. I mean, excuse me, it's 82 games. If you're a Laker fan, or let's say Golden State, they're going to stink up. They lost 15 times. They were 67-15. So they're going to stink up the court 15 times. So that's actually, so not every time a boxing match or your favorite basketball team set the court that they're going to deliver a masterpiece. So, but just keeping that in mind, I just was just very turned off by his tone. I get how people say they don't like, because they're used to tune in HBO, like me, used to tune in HBO. I'm used to hearing Jim Lampley's voice, and I'm used to hearing Howard Letterman. We grew up to that. This generation grew up to that. So I would concur with him that it takes some adjustments, and there's a lot of kinks that PBC needs to do. The commentary is not the best. The ring introduction is not the best. There are no ring girls. That's stuff that we have become accustomed to and grown to love, and some of the strong attributes that come with having a boxing telecast. But it's not just that. It's just his tone, and it's kind of when I'm going to digress and say, I don't know if it was borderline racist or borderline hate. I think he absolutely hates Al Heyman, and that's sad, because I mean, he has a lot of experience in the game. He's been in the game for some time. I've watched him some time. I actually listened to his 10 count, but the malice in which he said that PBC is a piece of shit, I lost a lot of respect for him when I heard that, because at the end of the day, as reporters, we have to be as unbiased as possible. It is impossible to have an unbiased reporter. That is just flat out impossible. But at the end of the day, we have to present a unquarantined, unfiltered message to the public, and let them intake the information and decipher for themselves who's right and what's wrong, who they like the best, who they like the least. But his tone was just adamantly despicable, and it bothered me to the core, and I just had to do a video on it. And I lost a lot of respect for Steve Kim that day, and I mean yesterday, and just to put things in perspective, he was making reference to Al Haymon putting on bad cards, and but we're sitting at like a developmental league for Golden Boy, and I mean they have some hell of fighters. That De La Hoya kid is going to be a monster in a year or two if they bring him up slowly and in the right way. So we're actually in a farm system. LA Fight Club is like the up and coming fighters that are under Golden Boy, predominantly Latino, but it just bothered me. And I'm not gonna call Steve Kim a racist, but I know his tone. Uh, he hates Al Haymon, and there's no doubt in my mind. And as a journalist, you can't be objective if you absolutely already hate someone. It's like there are no clean hands in boxing. If you knew, I've hung out with Don King for a long period of time. I've interviewed Don King. I've interviewed Bob Arum. I've heard all the third and fourth parties stories about Bob Arum, Don King, Dan Goosen. I've heard the stories. You know, I don't have as much experience as everyone else. In comparison, I'm pretty much a rookie at this in comparison to my elder statesmen. But there's no room in boxing for hate, you know, in terms on the promoter side, because their job is to bring you fights. And just to sum it up, it took 5 years to get Pacquiao Mayweather. Yes, no, but like it's like going through college. Like the culminating experience in college is your graduation. And because I know people in Al Haymon camp, I have strong relationships with people in Al Haymon camp. I know without a shadow of a doubt that the Pacquiao fight was going to happen because I've had conversations with people. But more importantly, that was their culminating experience, like a graduation. So the Pacquiao fight was Floyd Mayweather's graduation, and they was building up to the Pacquiao fight, and I had no doubt it was going to happen. I actually wrote an article last year saying that the fight was going to happen May 4th, and I was telling everyone to book their rooms. If you look at my Facebook in September, October, I didn't want to let the cat out the bag, but I absolutely knew that after the Maidana fight that this fight was going to take place. And I told people to book their rooms and get their airfare, because once they announce the fight, the price is going to go up. Feel free to check my my timeline on my Facebook, because I knew the fight was coming. But it just bothers me, you know. Sports is a place where, like I said, we can let our hair down and absolutely root for who we love, not based on color, creed, or where they come from, but just on their true assets. You know, how good is this fighter? You know, how terrible is this fighter? And it's just disgusting, man. I didn't like the tone in which he says PBC is a piece of shit. You know, it has some undertones in it that really rubbed me the wrong way. And he and I spoke for maybe 10 minutes, and maybe 5, 7 minutes. And obviously he disagreed with me. He said I didn't have enough experience as he did, but which is right. I don't have enough experience as he does, but I don't like the tone in which he said PBC is a piece of shit, and it bothered me. And where do we go from here? Al Haymon keep on producing fights, keep on over time. People will grow to love him, just as the same about Bob Arum, just as we say about Oscar De La Hoya. You know, it's easy for me to be biased towards Oscar De La Hoya because I grew up with Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya was probably the first fighter in my life when I started loving boxing that I absolutely watched grow up through the ranks. I watched all his fights on TV when he was at the Olympic Auditorium in downtown LA. And so I have an affinity towards Oscar De La Hoya. You know, he's had his up and downs in terms of promoting fights and losing fighters and, you know, having issues on the business side. But at the end of the day, you know, he's one of the first fighters that I felt like I can put my hands on, because he grew up not far from where I grew up, and, you know, he was a toast of the town, and, you know, you kind of grow to love fighters that actually grow up in your backyard. But at the end of the day, getting back to Steve Kim, there's no place in boxing for Steve Kim's perspective in terms of the hate on the reporter side. If you're a promoter and you're competing against him, yes, I mean that type of hate, that type of hate towards your opponent can only propel you. Like how Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, the hate that George Foreman had for Muhammad Ali, people feared that George Foreman was going to kill him in the ring. That type of malice, when I played football, you had to have that type of hatred towards your opponent. You know, like on the special team, you just want to go down and just decapitate the guy that was blocking for your opponent. So, but outside of those ropes, our job is to be objective and not deliver personal messages. And I think Steve Kim is delivering personal messages, and Media Row was agreeing with him. No one disagreed with him, which was kind of odd, you know, because he was spewing a lot of hate, you know, and so that's just how I feel. And hopefully this gets to him, you know. Hopefully he listens to it, and I don't think he subscribes to my channel because I'm so young in the game. But at the end of the day, that type of hatred doesn't make for good reporting. And hopefully he views this and he's not going to agree with me. So who cares? This is just my opinion. It's actually not an opinion. These are facts. And there were plenty of writers around me, and they just let him spew his hate. But I just couldn't do it. It's like people saying Oscar De La Hoya was not a great fighter or something like that. State obviously facts. Oscar De La Hoya was a great fighter, and he fought everyone. Pernell Whitaker wasn't a defensive fighter. Pernell Whitaker was a defensive fighter. Is Al Haymon bringing us the best fights? Not the best fights, but he's bringing us fights. And over time, he's going to start delivering some of the most epic fights that we've ever seen. You know, it takes time. You know, you can't build Rome in a day, and PBC definitely won't be built in 4 months. You know, so I encourage fight fans to embrace all promoters. Bob Arum, Don King, Golden Boy, Al Haymon. Well, he's an advisor, so Floyd Mayweather Promotion, and he uses Dan Goobson and everyone else and so forth. So, but you know, support PBC. You know, it's free. It's saving you anywhere between $17 and $20 a month. You know, and we'll see what's in store for the future of PBC. But I mean, it brought us Pacquiao Mayweather. They couldn't do it without Al Haymon. So Bob Arum couldn't do it by himself. You know, Floyd Mayweather left Bob Arum and made $225 million for 36 minutes. Come on, give me a break. That's just astounding. That's just put that in perspective. Tim Duncan has made, I heard on the radio today, $235 million for his career. He'll be 40 years old this upcoming season. And Floyd Mayweather made a minimum of $225 million in 36 minutes. That was his commencement ceremony. That was his graduation, the Manny Pacquiao fight. And I knew that going in, you know. But Steve Kim, get on board. PBC is not bad for boxing. He's bringing us fights, you know. And at the end of the day, he's going to buy up all these time slots, and he's going to put down all these deposits on these venues, and because he has so much money behind him that no one's going to be able to get into him. So you might as well be a part of it. Be a part of the 2015 new boxing type of generation. And so I'm out. Encourage people to subscribe to Barbershop Conversations. This is not much of an opinion. This is just merely facts. And Steve Kim, I would adamantly disagree with you in my closing statement. PBC is not a piece of shit. It's just boxing is turning the page on the old guard, and now the new guard is competing with the old guard, and that's just plain and simple. You know, it's kind of like grandma didn't want to use the internet, but now that her grandkids are on the internet, she's on the internet every day looking at their pictures, making sure that they're safe, and so on and so forth. So I'm out. Barbershop Conversations. I appreciate you guys for subscribing, and I look forward to bringing you more boxing talk as we move forward. Thanks, guys.